I mean, the residents here definitely made lots of money every year because of the festival, and I guess that helps the fact that they've become so accommodating to the festival goers. And at the same time, it kind of created an imbalance in the sense that the festival never made a dime on everything that goes on in the town. So that definitely hurt us over the years. But
up until now, because this is one of those because I saw an interview with you recently where you were talking about this, because that's part of the thing you're trying to change this year, right? It was trying to sort of incorporate all of that a little bit more, kind of get a grasp on all of that. Correct?
Yeah, there just needs to be a better balance. Like the idea was never to prevent the locals from making money. Because we know if that happens, then they just won't be supportive of the event.
Sure.
But there needs to be a balance, because if there's no more event, then everyone loses everything. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I'm working on with the city right now, and for the new event, Montebello Rock, to make sure that we find, I guess, proper balance and a good middle ground where everyone is happy and the festival can actually be profitable and keep on going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just so that it's not left on the table, last year, so the festival grew up to be gigantic. Last year, you had some major issues, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe in a nutshell, you want to walk me through what the big issue from last year was, like what the overall, because you ended up declaring bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if it's you or the corporation or how, I'm assuming it's the corporation, right? Kind of, can you give me, I don't want to get into the details and stuff, but can you give me kind of an overview? Like, do you have a takeaway of what the major problem was?
Well, I mean, just to put things in context, like the festival got so huge, and then the cash flow needs were so massive that after 10 years, I just couldn't go on my own. Like I had to find, partners to help me, financially for the festival, and because I wanted to keep it, massive, and at that point, like I had found some partners, and they basically became majority partners, and I had to become a minority partner.
Just based on the financial imbalance?
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And, so I remained like the spokesperson, because, the festival goers already knew me, and I'll always be the founder, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I stayed the spokesperson, and also the artistic director. So I would keep doing like building the lineups and stuff. So that's how it was for the last 3 years.
Okay.
It's always been a difficult business, especially when the festival got really massive. Like people would always assume, those guys must all be millionaires or billionaires. And, I heard so many crazy stuff. But in reality, like, I've always done it out of passion. And I always told people that, if I was in this for money, I would have quit a long time ago. I'm just a music fan, and that's why I'm doing it, and I love what I do, and that's why I keep doing it. There's, I mean, I could talk like for a long time about like all of these challenges, just like the exchange rate, which has been bad.
Oh yeah, because most of your festival has to get paid in US.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't even think about that portion of it. Yeah.
If we pay one band $1 million, then it becomes 1.3 or 1.4 million dollars Canadian, which is crazy. Plus, bands keep charging more and more money, even though they don't draw as many people. Festival goers, I guess, have become there's like no way to impress them anymore, because not only with Rockfest, but with like most of the big festivals, there was like a boom of like all these crazy massive lineups, and people were like, holy shit, and then you have to top it the next year and the next year. But after a while of just being like, you know, fed with like these massive lineups all the time, I guess, you know, the expectations are just unrealistic.
Right.
And, you know, even if you have a lineup with like, you know, Metallica and Green Day and Foo Fighters and Rage Against the Machine, and you put all these massive acts together, there's still going to be a bunch of people complaining, oh, this sucks, or, you know, this band isn't there, or it's too expensive.
Right.
So it's like it became to a point, and not just with Rockfest, that, you know, people are just like, you know, so selective, I guess, and there's so many options.
Rob Petroni from Blues Fest Windsor kind of says, at this point, unless you're throwing the concert in their backyard, like from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. for free, somebody's going to find something to complain about.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess my point is that there's many challenges, and it's always been difficult. And, you know, it was a tough year financially.
Yeah.
You know.
How was attendance last year? Like, because that wasn't the big issue, right?
Well, attendance was down, so you know the ticket sales weren't where they needed to be.
See, I have no comparison, because last year was my first year, and it still seemed pretty massive to me.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, basically what happened is after the festival, I was convened to a meeting by my former partners, and they basically gave me the preliminary financial results and basically told me that they made the decision to use the bankruptcy law, like the protection, to seek new partners and you know, new investors, basically, to take over the festival. And they hired this firm to help do this. And you know, it was just like a horrible experience for me on every level, but I tried to help that firm in the official process, and that lasted for 6 months with no results. So that's when the old entity basically went bankrupt in late December. And at that point, you know, as bad as that situation was, the good news was that, you know, I was now free, you know, in the sense that I'm no longer tied to, you know, other partners or whatever. So
can you and I don't want to get into the details of like the legal side of it, but talk to me about the emotional side of it, because like I've seen you in interviews, right? And I mean, you're a bit of a rock star, you're in your own right, and you've got that ability to sort of sit there and kind of, you know, be cool and talk about it or whatever. But like, this has been your entire fucking life.
Yeah.
And it made like massive media last year. And talk to me just emotionally and mentally what it was like to kind of go through that.
Well, you know, when I found out what was going to happen, and when I realized that, you know, there was nothing I could do about it, and believe me, I did everything I could to prevent this, and, you know, my longtime staff helped me, but, you know, it didn't work, and, you know, the decision was made, and that was it. You know, it was just like literally the worst moment of my life, because and not even like on a financial level, you know, because you know, I probably lost more than anyone else, but it was more on, as you said, I guess, an emotional level, because I spent my whole life building that festival, and you know, building relationships with suppliers, with bands, and, you know, it was lots of bands I became close friends with. So, you know, what happened was like, you know, the opposite of, you know, how I am and how I think, and you know, and I'm not, yeah, how can I say it? You know, I definitely made tons of mistakes over the years.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm not denying that. And, you know, I guess the reason for that was that I always did it out of passion. And, you know, my goal was like, let's build the craziest lineup ever and try to make that work financially. It was never about like, how can we turn the bigger business profit, you know? Yeah. And, you know, it was really done from the perspective of a music fan, you know, like I would build these lineups and impress myself and be like, holy shit, this is amazing. Plus the fact that it's actually happening in my backyard, literally.
Right. I want to know when in your head you decided you were going to go forward.
I mean, I had to make the decision pretty quickly.
Were you forced into making the decision?
No, I mean, I could have taken a year off or whatever, but you know, at that point in December, I was just like, you know, what do I do? Do I want to continue? Do I want to take a break? You know, I looked into all options, but I was like, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do, but I want to move forward, and I want to make things right, you know, and you know, try to, you know, I guess, because I guess when these things happen, usually, you know, people just call it quits and they disappear or whatever.
Slink off into the night. Yeah.
But you know, since it was never my intention or my decision for this to happen, I was like, you know, what else am I gonna do? Like, I've done this my whole life, and this is what I'm passionate about, and you know, I'll try to fix things, even if it's just symbolically, you know. And I knew I had the support from the festival goers and from, you know, several bands that reached out to me, even those who were affected by it, and that really, really touched me. And
are you willing to talk about that? Like,
I don't want to get
it's a little
into
personal
the
stuff,
specifics,
but
you know,
it's just that to me seems like I'm a musician at the end of the day, right? And you can put all the rock star shit around it you want, but at the end of the day, musicians are musicians. We're just a bunch of guys that like to play music and hang out and have a good time.
Yeah.
And you telling me that and whoever it is, you telling me that there's a band that came to the festival, got affected by the bankruptcy, and they called you up later and were like, dude, to me that's kind of like, that's what music is supposed to be to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I understand if you don't want to get into the details, but that kind of, it says something.
Yeah.
About the industry.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not the case for all the bands.
Of course,
to be honest,
of course.
But you know, I think most people know what I'm about, and yeah, you know, that's kind of why I wanted to keep going. And I actually worked for like a full month on a first version of this new event that ended up not working.
Okay.
And then I started to work on the second event, which ended up being Montebello Rock. And, you know, it's, the reaction has been great from the festival goers. Like, I knew it couldn't be like something massive as Rockfest used to be. And that model no longer worked financially. So, you know, even if that's what I wanted to do, there was no point in like, you know, fucking up a second time. So, you know, and lots of festival goers were like, you know, we had fun even when it was smaller, you know, before it exploded and everything. So that kind of pushed me in the direction of like, let's do a Back to the Roots event, which is going to be like way smaller, getting back to, you know, punk rock, metal, hardcore, you know, what it was before it got more diverse, I guess. And, just do like this event for the fans and based on really just the Montebello experience. Because, you know, what was hard every year was like the biggest expense by far was always the programming. Okay. Like the bands. And, you know, we realized like, you know, just one example, in 2017 we had Rammstein, which was amazing. I heard about this.
This made news, right? Like the price that you ended up paying was problematic or something.
I don't think so, okay. but I mean, yeah, definitely cost loads of money. Right. And it was amazing. You know, I love the band; they're a great band, and you know, I'm proud of achieving that because it was basically organizing a festival inside a festival because they have such a massive production and everything. But I guess my point was, even with such a massive headliner, that didn't necessarily bring the attendance up, because our audience doesn't necessarily need such a massive headliner. You know, like we had smaller headliners the previous year and people still came out. So I guess, you know, moving forward now with this new smaller event, and just with the pre-sale that we've done for Montebello Rock, like it's amazing, and we haven't announced a single band, and even the previous year for Rockfest 2018, like half the tickets were sold before we announced a single band. So I guess that says a lot about our audience, for which many of them, it's a tradition, and they just come back to Montebello every year regardless of who's playing. And some of them even said, like, even if there's no bands playing, we're still going to show up and party in Montebello. So that's kind of more the idea, I guess, for this new Montebello Rock event.
Don't forget, you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.